Hello everyone. Thanks for watching Edupedia World videos. I am Neeti Saxena and this particular video would cover the topic planning. When we talk about planning, let's just go through the definition. Planning includes all the activities that lead to the definition of objectives and to the determination of appropriate course of action to achieve those objectives. So if we break this particular definition into two parts, then it tells us that first step of planning is to define an objective, and consecutively once you define the objective, the second step that you have to do is you have to set a course of action to achieve those objectives. So for example, if you are planning to achieve, let's say if you want to crack some particular exam, so the first thing that you set or you decide is that you have to crack that particular exam. So that is defining the objective. Second is, once you have defined the objective, you will make a course of action. You will decide a particular path that you would be following in order to achieve that objective. So planning is deciding the objective and at the same time also mentioning and also deciding as to how you have to meet that particular objective. Now let's just go through the second point. Planning involves defining the organizational goals, establishing an overall strategy for achieving those goals, and developing plans for organizational work activities. So again, it's just repeating the same thing, that you need to define the organization goals and also you need to develop the strategy which you would be following or which you would be adapting to achieve that particular goal. So it is concerned with both ends as well as means. That means ends is considered to what is to be done and means is how it is to be done. So you need to decide both the thing, the end which is your objective and the means which is the path that you would be following to meet that particular objective. So planning determines resource allocation, timetables and other necessary actions to accomplish the goals. What is the nature of planning? It is the beginning of the process of management. Why do we say that planning is the first step? Because even if you are an entrepreneur and you want to start up with your own company, the first thing that you'd have to do is you have to plan. You have to plan from wherein, from where you'll be getting the finances, from where you'll be getting the different resources. That is something which you need to decide. So what are you actually doing is you are actually setting the target and as well as laying down the foundation of how you would be achieving that target. It is an intellectual process. Why? Because you need to think before you actually start acting. You need to do a lot of brainstorming before you actually set your objective, and also you need to brainstorm to define the action plan or the path that you will be following to achieve the objective. Decision making is an integral part of planning, because when you're planning, when you are brainstorming, you get a number of different ideas. From these different ideas that you get, you decide which particular idea or which particular action plan would be the best for your organization. So it involves a lot of decision making. It is a continuous process because you do not plan just once. If you've planned today, maybe after 6 months you'll again review your plan. Maybe after an year you would again review your plan and you would look into it, that whatever plan that you have decided for yourself, is that perfect, or do you need to replan it. Your planning and the plan that you develop should be flexible. Why flexible? Because in case you've planned and you implement that plan and later on you see that you need to bring in certain changes, then your planning and the plan that you've developed should be flexible enough to incorporate those changes. Because in case if your planning and the plan becomes very rigid, then it might create a problem to you later on. It's all pervasive function applicable across the different levels of management. Planning is done at every level of management. When you talk about the top level, they do the strategic planning. When you talk about the middle level, they do the operational planning, as in what all different things needs to be done. So at every level, you'll find that different types of plans are made. Strategic plans are made, operational plans are made, day-to-day plans are made. How these plans would be implemented is something that is decided. So planning is a very, very important function of management, and it is the first function that a manager or an entrepreneur needs to do. Importance of planning. Planning is very, very important because it minimizes risk. Why it minimizes risk? Because when you're planning, you do a lot of analysis. You look into the strength, you look into the weakness, the opportunity, the threat that your company might face and you might face. So it minimizes all the risk because you would definitely look into the threats and the weaknesses, and accordingly you would be making the plan. It helps you to achieve success because when you have made an action plan and step by step you follow that plan, then of course there's a lot of clarity. In case if you do not plan and you start working all of a sudden, then it might lead to a lot of ambiguity, and when there is ambiguity, the percentage of success achievement becomes less. It focuses attention on organizational goals, it facilitates control, and it helps to train the executives because then when you've done the planning, the top level management knows what is to be done and how what kind of employees they require, and accordingly they can even train the employees. So planning is very, very important before you actually jump into the execution. There are two different types of plan. One is a single use plan, the other is a standing plan. A single use plan is just made once and it is used once. So it is just, maybe in a particular situation or maybe in some contingency, you develop one particular plan and you implement it. So let's just go through it. It has a clear time frame for the usefulness. It includes detailed goals and objectives concerning quality, primary markets, rollout schedule, etc. When you talk about standing plans, it is an ongoing meaning and application for an organization. So standing plan is something that you've developed today, and this plan would be reused every year or wherever that process is to be done in the organization. So standing plan is something which is repetitive in the organization, and single use plan is just once you make that plan, you implement it, and there is no need of using that plan again. Another way of differentiating the types of planning is depending upon what level the planning is done. So based on the level of planning, the planning is strategic planning, operational planning, and tactical planning. Strategic planning is done at the top level management. The CEO, CFO, the owner of the organization, they sit together, they brainstorm, and they decide what is the strategy of the organization. What is the vision and mission of the organization? Where does the organization want to move? Maybe another 1 year, 5 year, 10 years. Where does the owners want to see the organization? So they look into the industry, they look into the market, and depending upon that, they develop an overall strategy for the organization. So it is comprehensive, long term, and relatively general. It focuses on broad, enduring issues for ensuring a firm's effectiveness over a long period of time, states the organization's mission, and may describe a set of goals to move a company into future. So strategic goal is something which decides the mission of the organization, and also decides that maybe in another 5 years or 10 years where does the company should be moving. After strategic planning, let's discuss operational planning. These are focused, short-term, and specific. What is operational planning basically is doing is it is converting the strategic plan into operations. Whatever the strategy has been formulated by the top level management, this strategy is converted into action plan. That okay, this is the strategy, this is what the organization has to do, but how it has to be done is something which is described in the operational planning. See, it is focused, short term, and specific. It translates the broad concepts of the strategic plan into clear numbers, specific steps, and measurable objectives for the short term. It requires efficient, cost effective application of resources to solving problems and meeting the objectives. Tactical planning, it falls between strategic and operational planning. It is more specific than the strategic plan, and it deals more with the issues of efficiency than with long-term effectiveness. So between the strategic planning and operational planning, there is another planning which is called tactical planning, which converts the strategic plans into smaller plans, and operational plans further converts the tactical planning into small operations or small action plans, which helps the organization to meet the overall objective of the organization. So I hope this slide is clear. I'll just summarize it once again for you. Strategic planning is done by the top level management. Operational planning is done by the middle and the lower level management, wherein they look into it that how the strategy of the organization or how the overall goal of the organization can be met. Tactical planning lies between strategic and operational planning, which is defining the strategy for an year, and it helps the managers to look into those short-term goals, but it is definitely a little bigger than the operational planning. So with this, we come to the end of this particular video, wherein we have just discussed the basics of planning, why planning is important, and how can planning be categorized. So based on the categories, we've seen that planning can be categorized into single use plans, standing use plans, strategic, operational, and tactical planning. With this video, I'm sure that you must have understood the basics of planning. I would request you to go through the part 2 of module 3, which would in detail take strategic, tactical, and operational planning. Thank you so much for watching this video.